Okay. Okay, it is now 7:01. We apologize for being a minute or two late. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Shay, can we get a roll call vote?
Shay, it says the meeting also at the end soon, but I'm not on. Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Avant Elliott is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Reggie Jones is joining us via Zoom. And then in the boardroom, we have Mr. Gary Oswald and we have Dr. Lynn Beckford and Mrs. Veronica Moore. Thank you.
Present.
Before we approve the agenda, I wanted to make a statement that the items that had to do with the human resource management, I would like to have that removed from the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Therefore, can I now have approval of the agenda?
We didn't need to vote on that, on the removal from the agenda.
Right.
Ms. Morreal, you're muted, just FYI.
I'm requesting a motion to remove that item from the agenda. You said.
Yes, and I
Okay.
moved and Reggie second.
Second.
Okay,
So that's
All in
set
favor?
aside.
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
We will now go to the first item on the agenda, and that's the open session board meeting minutes. I'm sorry, I'm looking at something different. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Madam Chair.
Announcements. Announcements. Dr. May, did you have a statement?
Yes, I wanted to motion for those items to be moved to discussion, so then maybe we can get some questions answered about it. Can I have the floor to make that motion for the hiring items?
It's already been
Go ahead,
been,
Dr. Becker.
it's always been been approved to remove from the agenda.
We were just removing it from it was under consent or it was under for discussion? Let me look.
No.
It was under discussion.
Okay, because I did want to discuss it, but okay, that's fine. We can go ahead.
Were there any announcements?
I have just one.
Go ahead. Reg.
Just want to make sure, as we know, people are struggling to find tests and things of that sort. At the Delwood Recreation Center, the rest of this week, from 10 to 4, we're doing rapid tests, all vaccines, all boosters, and flu shots. So you can get anything you want as it pertains to a shot, you can get it there. The rest of this week, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, if you hear people having trouble finding locations.
Mr. Jones, do you need an appointment?
No appointment needed.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional announcements? Okay. Shay, do we have any patrons who would like to make comments on our board meeting?
No, we do not.
Therefore, we will go to item 5, which is reports from the superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to welcome everyone back from the holiday break, winter break, and hope that everyone is looking forward to the great things that are yet to come in 2022. I'm sure that everyone knows by now that we are aggressively watching the DESE attendance guidelines as it relates to being able to go to virtual or not. In our current guidelines, we cannot, as a district, close and go virtual. So we're closely monitoring student attendance and student positivity rate. It gives me pleasure to announce that Dr. Sherry Schomburg, principal at Danforth Elementary School, is the elementary principal of the year. There was a
Oh.
ceremony held for her last week.
Mhm.
Also, this is a reminder to our staff and parents as we are entering the midwinter month. Please be mindful of the inclement weather days. Update your contact information. There's due to be some wintry storm this weekend, so please update your information. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Ms. Maura Real for making the district rounds with me prior to winter break. We gave an update on where we are as a district with regards to all the challenges that we faced thus far, but that we're putting that behind us now and moving forward as a district. And so what we've been saying this year is beginning second semester, there's a new view in the horizon. That concludes the superintendent's report.
And thank you. And I did enjoy making those rounds with you and seeing the staff encouraged, and it was just a great experience. And I thank you for asking me to participate.
Thank you.
Item 6 is items for discussion. Wait a minute, yeah, items for discussion. And the first is policy recommendations.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I will be presenting policy recommendations for discussion. The first policy recommendation for discussion is policy DCB, which deals with political campaigns. And this policy, what it states is that it was originally adopted by the district on July 1st of 2010. However, the revision states that school districts cannot use public funds to support or oppose a ballot measure, candidate, or committee. It is recommended to approve the revised policy as presented by MSBA with no additional revisions. The next policy is policy JG-R1, and that is for student discipline, elementary. And this policy was also adopted July 1st, 2010. And the revision to this policy is that it is prohibited to confine a student in an unattended locked space, except for in an emergency while awaiting the arrival of law enforcement. It is recommended to approve the policy revision as presented by MSBA with no additional changes. The next policy is JG-R2, discipline, and this one is for secondary. It was originally adopted July 1st, 2010, and the revision is the same as the previous policy. It's prohibited to confine a student that's left unattended in a locked space, except for in the case of an emergency while awaiting the arrival of law enforcement. The recommendation is to approve this policy revision as presented by the MSBA with no additional changes. The last policy is a new policy. It's policy JHDE, which is behavior risk assessment. And this policy is not required by law. However, it is recommended by MSBA. And with this policy, a behavior risk assessment team will be established along with protocols and procedures for assessing risk and also threats to the safety of our students and staff. The policy also goes on to say that staff members and also contracted workers are responsible for reporting any threats or anything that poses a danger to district staff and students. It specifies the makeup of the behavior risk assessment team. And then it talks about the training that will be required for that team. Also, there will be guidance for students and staff on how to recognize threatening behaviors. The team will also be responsible for implementing an assessment and intervention protocols. And then lastly, it will provide information on community resources for supporting students in crisis. It is recommended that the district adopt the policy as recommended by MSBA.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions regarding this agenda item?
Yes, I just have one quick question. I was just wondering with the behavior risk assessment, how quickly would that committee and the training be done? Would it be for the next school year or something that begins this semester once adopted?
Okay, I am going to defer that question to Dr. Patton.
Okay.
Dr. Miranda, we will be working on that plan this school year to implement the plan in the 22-23 school year.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you. We will now move to item C, which is substitute teacher long-term daily rate.
Okay, the next item for discussion, substitute teacher long-term daily rate adjustment. And this item is important to our school district because we know we have a number of teacher vacancies and a shortage of substitute teachers. And in light of the pandemic, it has made recruiting substitute teachers even more difficult. And because of the job market and stimulus checks and so forth and in-person learning, it has been very difficult. Some school districts have decided to increase their daily rate for long-term substitutes, which we are desperately in need of, again, because we have teacher vacancies. For example, St. Louis Public Schools has increased their rate to $200 a day. Hazelwood is paying $215 a day and 48 cents. Normandy, $175 a day. Pattonville, $239.68 a day. In Riverview Gardens, we currently pay $150.01. And so in order for us to remain competitive, to attract and retain long-term substitute teachers, it is recommended that, that the daily rate for long-term substitute teachers be increased from $150.01 a day to $200 a day. And let me back up for a minute. The budget shows the difference, and it's approximately almost about $400,000 that it would take for the remainder of the school year if we increase the daily rate at a $260 a day bill rate. However, because of COVID-19 and the sub shortage that's related to it, these additional costs are reimbursable to the district with the ESSER 3 grant.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Williams on this agenda topic?
Yes, I have
Dr.
one.
Beckwith?
Ms. Williams, because of the emergency nature of this, why wasn't this included as an action item also for tonight?
Well, Dr. Beckwith, normally, because I thought the board would need more time to consider this item, but I am open to moving it as a action item if it's not too late to do that.
Will we need to make a motion on that?
Yes, I would move because of the dire emergency. This be moved to an action item tonight.
May I have a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote for Michelle.
No, voice vote.
Okay, a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I was recommending a vote because I could barely hear Miranda, but a voice vote is fine. Okay. So we'll move that to item for action.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
sure. The next item on the agenda is item D, which is video interviewing platform.
Yes, I also have that item for discussion, the video interviewing platform. And what this item is a way to improve our recruiting process. And we know, again, with this, the pandemic, it will make us more competitive. It will allow candidates to get in front of our hiring managers quicker and also allow us to screen and connect with candidates faster. It will make our department more efficient, whereas we wouldn't be making those screening phone calls. We will learn more about the candidate in less time, therefore screening faster. It will standardize our interviewing process and just improve our recruitment and management of hiring overall. There were 3 quotes that I obtained for this interview hiring. One is Spark Hire for $10,440, Interview Stream $12,450, and VidCruiter $3,450. The one that I'm recommending tonight is Spark Hire. And the reason for that, our applicant tracking system is Talent Ed, and 2 of the vendors that I received quotes from actually integrate with our applicant tracking system. So it will be just a matter of any hiring manager clicking on a candidate, clicking the video interview button, and then they're able to retrieve that interview for that candidate. So therefore, I'm recommending Spark Hire. It is budgeted due to COVID-19 concerns. It's reimbursable through the ESSER 3 grant. It is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve Spark Hire as the vendor to contract with for video interviewing.
Thank you for that information. Do we have any questions on this agenda item?
Yes, I have a quick question. So will the department pre-populate questions, then the person kind of answer questions on the screen and then they go back and listen? Is that correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. So we can use questions that we have, but the company also has a bank of questions for various jobs, and we can also choose from that job bank as well of questions.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you for that information. We will then move on to item E, which is restorative practices, professional development for principals.
Hi Shay, am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay, good evening, SAB, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, Board Secretary, colleagues, and community. The board item I'm presenting this evening is for discussion, and it is around restorative practices for principal professional development. It looks like I have moved forward too quickly in my slides, but I'll go to number 2. The reason for this professional development plan is our current reality. Currently, we have 40% of discipline events resulting in out-of-school suspension.
Excuse me, Ms. Ogden. We
Yes,
can't
ma'am.
We cannot see your screen.
Okay,
Ms. Fields is going to share her screen. And you
okay,
just have to tell her when to click.
okay. Apologies.
Okay, we're ready.
All right. Would you like me to go back to the beginning? So as I mentioned, I'm speaking tonight regarding a plan, a learning plan for school administrators for restorative practices to occur for the remainder of the 2022 school year. And again, this item is for discussion. Can you see that? Are you on the second slide?
On the data slide.
The data slide, yes, please.
Mhm.
Our current reality as of 12/16, the day before we went on winter holiday, is listed in terms of suspension events. And 40% of all discipline events in our schools at this time result in an out-of-school suspension. As a result, this professional development learning plan for the remainder of this school year is for principal professional development to work on learning discipline that restores and restorative practices in order to build our staff, our scholars, and our family. Next slide. There have been conversations and planning involved with students, parents, and many stakeholders within our Riverview Gardens community. Next slide. Why the Center for Conflict Resolution? I have spoken with 3 different providers, and the Center for Conflict Resolution is the organization that I have consulted with who has provided a program tailored to Riverview Gardens School District and ideas for restorative practices that we can use immediately and over time with students and staff. Their body of work shows their ability to have an impact and to decrease suspensions, increase attendance, and impact positively student achievement. Next slide. If approved by the SAB, the professional learning plan, as I've stated, will include conflict resolution, discipline that restores in order to positively impact our schools. Next slide. As the Assistant Superintendent of School Leadership, this work will be monitored weekly and monthly, as I do at this time, on suspensions by looking at patterns of behavior at each school site and using data with principals at our principals meetings and individual consultations in order to identify and disrupt negative trends. Next slide. On this slide, you can see when the professional development will occur if approved by the SAB. It will occur over time in the remainder of the school year, and the budget impact is stated along with the source coming from PD 1%. Next slide. The projected outcome is for district and building administrators to be prepared to engage in restorative process so that we're able to impact our students and community and positively increase our attendance, achievement, and graduation rate. So as the plan, the initial part of this plan, as I stated several times, is to work during the 2022 school year. And then during these planning opportunities and professional opportunities for principals, will engage in planning in order to determine how to move forward within the district for upcoming school years so that our teachers, support staff, and others that are within our community are able to benefit from the training, learn restorative practices, and be better able to engage in pro-social behaviors that cause students to achieve at greater rates. And next slide. Thank you very much for your consideration. That concludes my presentation. And I'm wondering if there are any questions.
At this time, Dr. Beckwith.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Austin. What was the amount of this special project?
$14,599.
And what does that include?
That includes full 5 days of training, 2 being one in February, 1 in March. Another day that will be virtually and split into 2 days, and then 2 days during the administrator principal retreat, Principal Institute Academy. And during that time, Dr. Beckwith will be working on learning the restorative practices, engaging in the restorative practices, as well as planning for the school year, for the next year, to determine how we will assure that our students, staff, and support folks are able to engage with these practices at our school sites.
The genesis of my question was because you mentioned overtime. Who's overtime?
Were you thinking overtime and pay?
Yes.
There's no overtime and
Okay.
pay.
Okay.
No. This will all be done during the time that principals are working. We have our principals meetings scheduled, and we're planning to use the principals meeting in February and March for training, and then use half the day, the half day that I spoke of, that'll be virtual. That'll be during the April and May principals meeting. It'll be virtual. It'll be used to do planning and use the consulting firm's expertise along with our expertise. And the reason for that is,
You've answered my question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes, I was wondering what other urban school district had they implemented this program in, and what was the pre and post data on it? Do you have anything that support the outcomes?
I do have pre and post data, specifically one urban school district moved from an APR rate of 58% to 82.9, which included attendance, graduation rate, and achievement, and then the attendance levels and suspension rates in 12 and 18 schools for attendance, and then 10 of 12 schools the next year as increased in attendance, and then the suspension rates decreased substantially in 10 of 12 schools. Now, another piece of information were you wanting to know specific districts?
Sure.
I do have that information. It would take me.
You can just send it. You can send a report. That's fine.
I do have specific districts, and
Okay.
I can provide specific data as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Will they follow up after the training to to review implementation, fidelity of everything that's been trained on and things like that? And is that
Yes.
all a part of the 14,000?
Well, it is part of the 14,000. The biggest component of the 14,000 is assuring that principals are trained, and from the training and conversation that we've had thus far, it's clear that we are working on restorative practices and we have a good knowledge base. In order to come together and make sure that what we're doing is effective district-wide, this piece includes planning for exactly how principals want to move forward with restorative practices. My hope is that we'll continue with the work with the Center for Conflict Resolution into the next school year. I did not want to act prematurely and make that decision on behalf of principals, because their voice is critical to assuring that what we're doing is impactful and that we're on the right track to doing what we need to do specifically for Riverview Gardens School District.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Ms. Oswald?
This will work along with our trauma-informed training.
Yes, in fact, that's restorative practices and restorative discipline goes hand in hand with trauma-informed and is a next logical step. Additionally, it is in alignment with RTI, response to intervention, PBIS, positive behavior intervention systems, and MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. So it really is taking that next logical step and ensuring that as a district, our principals are together and united in, again, assuring what's needed for our Riverview Gardens School District scholars.
In your justification, you talk about coming back to the SAB in March with some planning. What would that be?
Well, as I mentioned, during these 5 days, especially those 2 half days when we're virtual, and during the Principals Academy Institute retreat, we'll be really looking at what we've learned, what more we can be offered, and how we want to go about doing that. So when I come back to you, if you approve this plan, and if you approve moving forward, then the next step would be to talk about what we've done, present our plans, and ask for approval to move forward. And and that's something that we're working on. So I guess, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
You're
Are there
very
any
welcome.
additional questions? Ms. Austin, I have 2 questions I wanted to ask. I heard you say something about that this program will help unite the principals in the way that they address the restorative practices, what have you. But I have always been concerned about the various reasons that students at our different schools get suspended. Is this going to assure that there's some type of established system as what would get a student suspended or not get a student suspended? And the reason I say that is because I know of a student that got suspended because he wore some sandals to school, which the principal did not consider part of the uniform, but she did not see that he had 2 of his toes taped up because they were broken, and he was suspended. So my concern is that the number of suspensions that you listed, that is awfully high. And I'm just wondering, is there been a consistent use of why the reasons why the students are suspended? And is that something, if there's not, that this will address?
Well, that is such an excellent question, Board Chair, Ms. Morrow-Real. Consistently, each time we meet, and nearly every time I'm visiting a school, we talk about discipline. I receive calls on a daily on, what is happening with suspensions? How do I move forward with this? And one of the things that principals have called for is continuity and consistency in how discipline is reported, the codes that we use, and really developing a common language so that we are much more on the same page. So my goal is to definitely move toward what you mentioned first, that continuity and consistency, and assuring that we have that uniformity within the district for all students. If you're at Glasgow, things that you get suspended for need to be similar or the same as what you're suspended for at Highland. And as we spend more time together developing common practice and developing common plans as an administrative team, I do believe that is exactly where we're going, Ms. Morrow-Real.
Thank you. And my next question with this, and I hear about bringing the principals together and training the principals. Is there a parent component to this, or how to deal with parents that may be, I'm not going to say problem parents, but that are not necessarily happy in the situation if their students should be suspended, or is there a parent component to this? Because that's important, not to leave parents out in this.
Yes, ma'am. And that is directly as a result of what I've learned here in the past 6 months, that a lot of times communication with parents is inconsistent, and we need to make sure as an administrative team that we're consistently communicating with parents regarding why we do what we do. A very important component of restorative practices and what makes this work so effective and meaningful is that as we move forward in our planning, and this particular group of folks in this nonprofit agency provide the work where we do the same training with parents, community members. I've been working in collaboration with a couple of our other district leadership team members, and I'm really advocating that we as a district leadership team and full staffs, as well as members of the community and parents, receive the same training. I've seen it work. The data, I can provide data that shows that it works. The data that I provided within the proposal comes from it being a whole community effort. I'd like to say something. Secondly, I do hope to continue to partner with everyone at the central office to make sure that each and every minute of each and every day, parents are part of what we're doing with their students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions before we move on? Any additional? Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you so much.
Item 7 on our agenda calls for an approval of the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
No, I have a question.
All right.
Yes, and this is basically for Dr. Patton and Dr. Singleton. In reviewing the payment of the bills, Hazelwood, Ozark, and Grandview charged us or billed us for $65,399 for wards of the state who are residents are in our district, but they're living somewhere else. I think Dr. Patton brought to our attention that we weren't charging anybody. So my question, which doesn't have to be answered now, how much have we received from the start of the school year where we are charging other districts who are wards of the state, live in our district, we educate them, but we bill back the home school district. So I would like the board to have that information.
Dr. Pruitt-Adams, would you see that that gets to the board? Thank you. Okay.
Madam President,
Yes,
go ahead.
I can speak to that.
Yes.
Dr. Beckwith, while I don't have the total, I can assure you that we have billed several districts for students that are in our district that we are educating, whose parents live in other districts. I will get that total to you. But after we talked about that, I made sure that we start billing for those particular students. So I will make sure that you get that information.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President,
I'm sorry.
I was interrupted when I had a question.
Go ahead,
Can I
please.
ask my question? Okay, I did. I was curious about that as well, Dr. Beckwith. I didn't know what we were being billed for, but I did also wanted to ask about the cab service. That amount was kind of high. Who are the children that's getting the cab service?
So Dr. Miranda, we have approximately 500 students in transition in our school district. These are students who may live outside of our district, but we are responsible for educating them. And because they live outside the district, we provide cab service for those students to get back and forth from school, to and from school.
Okay, and then my other question was, because I'm not sure, are we facilitating our own food service or do we outsource with a company? I saw a lot of food service, food equipment items listed. Is there someone that could answer the question about?
Yes,
like Bobo
yes,
pizza and all that? Okay.
Sure. Dr. Von Elliott, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Good evening to the Special Administrative Board, specifically Dr. Miranda Von Elliott. To answer your question, food service is in-house for us. So we have a director and assistant director, and we have cooks, cook managers at most of our sites. But we do run our food service program in-house. We do not outsource the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we did get a motion and a second for that.
Correct.
Okay,
We need a vote.
yes, sir, Dr. Beckwith. I was gonna ask a question. I'll discuss it, the question I was gonna ask, I'll discuss with you tomorrow, Dr. Pruitt, when we have our meeting. So can we now have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposers? Okay. No, I'm getting ready to bring that up. Yes, I have that up separate. So we have one action item, as you recall, earlier in the meeting, Dr. Becker requested that be moved for action as well as a discussion. So that item is item C, which is the substitute teacher long-term daily rate adjustment. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Can I
Second,
have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposers? Okay. The last item on our agenda, I believe, is the adjournment.
So
Ma'am.
move.
Second.
It has been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right. Happy New Year, everyone.
Same to
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.